Hello, everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. My name's Jenna Farber. I'm with Emerging Destinations. We represent cool companies in cool places. And we are also working alongside the Guyana Tourism Authority, or the GTA, in the promotion of the destination to the North American travel trade. So on behalf of the GTA, I have Candace Phillips joining us today, and she's going to be talking to you about Indigenous culture in Guyana, which is a very interesting subject, and I will let her obviously go into much greater detail about it. But before I do that, I'm going to just take a quick minute to introduce our portfolio to you. Candace, thank you. So we have quite an extensive portfolio in South America, or the Americas, Africa, and then a little bit of Europe. So you can see up there on your screen. I'm not going to take much time to go through all of them because we'd be here for a while, but please note that I am here to assist if you have any questions about any of those clients that you see up there on your screen. My email address is jenna@emergingdestinations.com, and I will be the one sending out the follow-up from this webinar. So hopefully, if you have any questions, feel free to reach out to me there. A couple housekeeping items to go over before we get started. This webinar will be recorded, and you can find all of our previously recorded Guyana webinars on our Emerging Destinations YouTube channel and our website as well. So if you have any subjects you want to do a bit of a deep dive into that aren't already there, please feel free to reach out and we will make sure that they're covered in a future upcoming webinar. Last but not least, we will be doing a Q&A at the end of Candace's presentation. So please feel free to stay on for that and ask her any questions that you might have about upscaling Indigenous experiences in Guyana. You can type those through using the GoToWebinar control panel. And then at the end of her presentation, I'll try to get through as many as we can. But if there are some that we miss for time restraints, please note that we will for sure answer them in a webinar email follow-up. So I think that's all that I have to say, Candace. We're all very excited to hear what you have to say and thrilled to have you join us. So without any further ado, I will hand things over to you.
Great. Thank you, Jenna, for your warm introduction, and of course, for your invitation to join you this afternoon. A warm welcome from Guyana. And it gives me great pleasure to present on the work that we've been doing at the Guyana Tourism Authority in terms of community-based tourism. I'm Candace Phillips. I'm the Senior Manager of Product Development. And for the past 5 years, I think this has been my life's passion to really understand community-based tourism in our country and how we at the authority can play a role in developing these and really taking it to the next level. So my presentation will largely focus on some of the experiences that we've had in country, some of those things that you can look forward to experiencing, and of course, most importantly, our approach to, or what I would like to consider Guyana's approach to community-based tourism. But before we get to the meat of my presentation, this impressive photo of Kite Shore, 741 feet of waters cascading, making it the largest single drop waterfall in the world, said to be 5 times the height of Niagara. This photo does not do it justice. To stand there and look at Kite Shore is magnetic. And if your reason for coming to Guyana is to see this wonder, know that there are many other locations within our country that you can experience on a trip to Guyana. I like to think of Guyana as a place where it's one destination with so many experiences for you to enjoy. But where is Guyana? Geographically, Guyana is situated on the South American continent. We're bordered by Venezuela, Brazil, and Suriname, and to the north, the Atlantic Ocean. So geographically, we are South American, the only English-speaking country on the continent. 83,000 square miles, comparatively the size of Idaho. But while we are geographically South American, we are culturally Caribbean, and that makes us, I guess you can say, we have dual citizenship. And that's why you see so much of the Caribbean flavor come out when you visit Guyana. Of course, to get here, there are a number of locations that you can come to us from. And in previous years, we would have had challenges with connectivity, airline connectivity. But now we have 13 airlines that are now servicing the destination with some of the direct flights from North America to Guyana. And of course, there are connections to the Caribbean and further afield should Guyana just be one stop on your itinerary. So we've been really looking forward to the expansion of the travel market because now it's easier to get to Guyana. And so the Guyana tourism product is largely built on 5 main pillars: nature and wildlife, active exploration, conservation, and save. And if you're a birding enthusiast, we have in excess of 850 species of birds in country and a number of licensed operators who are willing and able to put together a specialized itinerary for your visit. We are, I think one of the greatest strengths of Guyana is the culture and heritage. And you referenced that I talked about being South American, but also Caribbean. And so from a cultural perspective, there are two things that shape our landscape. One, because we were previously a colony, and so we have the remnants of the past still in country through some of the forts that you can visit, but also to see that when you visit Guyana, there are a number of locations. If you look at the names of villages and other areas around Guyana, you will see that they represent our rich culture or a rich history in terms of the past. But also from a cultural perspective, we are a multicultural society. We have 6 cultural ethnic groups, which each bring in their own take on everything. And Guyana is actually said to be one of the countries with the most holidays, because if it's not religious, it's cultural. And so, you know, in Guyana, as Guyanese, we're very happy for those holidays. So when you come here, it's an immersion of so many different things that can be customized to suit your taste. Imagine standing here, overlooking the forest. You're just there, breathing in fresh air, just looking at the greenery, some sun, and just being thankful to be having this moment. We have approximately 85% of our forest still intact. And so when you're flying over Guyana or trekking through the forest, you get an appreciation of the types of nature that we still have intact. And most importantly, because they are the homes of the fauna that exists within them. We have the slogan of being the land of giants. So we have the giant river otter, giant anteater, the black caiman, just to name a few, the jaguar. But even though we may be known as the land of giants, we also cater for medium and small species as well. We are home to everything that thrives in the nature that we have here. And if nature and culture is a bit too soft for you, we got you. Active exploration. There are a number of mountains, forests, hills that you can actually challenge yourself with. For example, if you're going to Uchi, that will take Uchi Falls in Parima, which is in Region 7, 4 or 5 days trekking through the forest to come upon a waterfall that just leaves you astounded to be there. Kaieteur itself, there is an overland itinerary that you can trek up a mountain. The mountain's name is Oh My God. And when I had the chance to meet the Oh My God mountain, I can kid you not, I said that quite a number of times on my experience there. So they didn't just name it for the sake of naming it. But it's not only about waterfall chasing. There is ATV, there are different types of experiences that we can have. And actually, from a developmental perspective, we are pursuing the adventure market a little bit more to diversify the types of experiences that we can have in country. The land of many waters, that's the other definition of Guyana. And so our 3 main rivers, which are the Essequibo, Demerara, and Berbice, and its tributaries give way to numerous waterways throughout the country. Our waters are quite different. They can be compared with the Caribbean neighbors who have more or less the blue type of waters. Ours is the dark brown or the coffee type, but it's also quite possible to have swimming pools like the one in the photo, which we call aquarium pools, which are more transparent. But throughout the country, there's always a place for you to just relax, swim in some fresh water, and just be at peace with nature. Imagine that you're a place where the world feels like it's your own, where you can hike a mountain, have a flask of coffee, if you like coffee, and you can witness a sunrise, a sunset, and you can just for that moment feel that everything that you see in front of you, nature, the landscape, it all belongs to you because you're kind of like one of the small set of people that are there. And that is one of the allure of the Guyana product, is that we don't have huge numbers. We have small numbers to make it more intimate so that you can truly find your freedom here. This photo I titled Guardian of the Mukru. And I think this is a very important point to begin to sort of set the frame for my presentation. So in Guyana, through respect, we have a term that we use, a term of endearment that we use for elders. So we usually call them auntie or uncle. So in this photo, there's Uncle Mo standing between some mukru plants. This is in Shilinab in Region 9. And when I came upon this experience, he was telling us about the value of the mukru. He's a craftsman. A mukru is used in the production of indigenous craft materials. And when we were there having this experience, he talked about reverence for the environment, paying homage to the spirits of the forest. And I think that is a great representation as we begin to look at the value of community-based tourism in Guyana. So the map on the left with the pink dots largely represent indigenous communities throughout the country. It is approximately 215 titled and satellite communities, while the map on the, the left, right, the map on my right would be where indigenous groups or nations are found throughout the country. Note that we do not identify as being Amerindian tribes because nations or people are directly correlated to people with a history and an ancestral past, language. We have a distinct character. So we identify as indigenous nations or groups. So at the top of the map in Region 1, we have 3 groups there. So in Guyana, there are 9 indigenous nations. We begin at the top of the map. They are the Lokonos or Arawaks, Waraos, and Caribs. And as we move along the coastal line, we see regions 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and to some extent, region 10 have populations of Lokonos or Arawaks. As we move inland to region 7, we have the Akawayos and the Arakunas. The Patamonos call region 8 home, and to the bottom of the map, the Rupununi have 3 additional groupings there. In the North Rupununi, it's predominantly the Mukushis, while the Wapichan or Wapishanas occupy the south part of the Rupununi, and right down at the bottom of the map in the green patch, you have the Waiwais. So although these nations have different areas of residence, it is not uncommon to find a Lokono from Region 1, let's say in the Rupununi, because we move around quite a lot. But if we look at these 2 maps side by side, what it shows us is that indigenous people live throughout the length and breadth of Guyana. And so from a developmental perspective, it makes only natural sense that we would develop tourism with indigenous peoples, because they are the guardians of the environment. They're the ones that have kept it for all these years. And that is why we take the approach that we do to ensure that indigenous rights are protected in the process, that it is not tourism that takes the first stage, but it's actually the people are at the heart of development. On any regular day, These are just three snapshots of what could be happening in a community. We could be enjoying our food on the left-hand side, eating some cassava bread, or the top right hand, which is basically a man paddling his canoe with his dogs on a serene river, or the bottom, which speaks to two persons trekking through the forest with their warishis. So the warishis is like an indigenous backpack carrying vessel made out of natural materials as well. What I want to really emphasize here is that when we talk about developing community-based tourism, we are taking but a window, a look into someone's life. It is not made up, it is not fabricated, it is not a show put on for visitors. It is actually an invitation to be part of our lives for the extent of your stay. People. People are at the heart of tourism. And this is a wonderful picture of Auntie Irene from Warpoka. She's a Warao from Region 1, and she's a craftswoman. So one of the experiences when you go to Warpoka is that you can actually go and sit with Auntie Irene as she tells you stories and compare life from back in the day to now and what has changed, and just seeing the world differently, but also be able to benefit from her knowledge as well. And so I think one of the warmest things about coming to Guyana, visiting Indigenous communities, but not only Indigenous communities, Guyana as a whole, is that our warmth as a people exudes. And that is one of the things we really stress on, the genuineness of people as part of this process. All right, so what has led us to this point? Way back in time, the first established community-based enterprise in the country was Surama. At that time, I don't think many manuals were written, especially in Guyana. We were just feeling it out, trying to figure out how to make this thing happen. But based on the example of Surama and their successes, shortly after that came Riwa Eco Lodge and Cayman House. So these are considered the three main, or the top three Indigenous locations in the country. What has come out of this, though, is by other communities recognizing that tourism is a sustainable mechanism or sustainable developmental tool, they too want to be part of this shift towards tourism. And so now you see an explosion of communities that are so interested in developing their tourism enterprises. And as product developers from the GTA, our task is basically to facilitate the process, to provide the guidance, to provide all the training and capacity building that we can do so that they can become the owners of their own enterprises. I do think that this is one of the signals of Indigenous communities taking their future in hand and trying to determine what it can be for the future. Guyana's version of community-based tourism is largely a framework that we call, or an approach we call, the community-led and owned tourism framework. I think that's very important, and I'll focus in on two words: largely community-led and owned. And so we know that the community getting involved in tourism is largely from them. It's driven by them, by their requests, by their involvement, and it is owned by them. The state, the government, the GTA does not own the product, it is owned by the community. And so by so doing, you're setting them up for success, whereby the entire community will benefit either directly or indirectly from tourism. But to further dive into community-based experiences, it is to understand that when you take on such an experience, you're navigating our paths, navigating the ways of where our ancestors have walked, where we have walked. And it is such a remarkable skill of our guides to be able to navigate forests and waterways without compasses, just knowing where to go. More so, and I think this one is very important, is recognizing that as Indigenous peoples, there is a strong connection to land, water, air, everything. Tend to think that there is a spirit that governs all of this. So when in The Lion King they said it was a circle of life, we really did mean it, that everything is interconnected and all it requires is us to slow down, to understand what are these connections and the role that we have to play. And as visitors to these locations, is also being respectful of the practices and the traditions of people. And I think this is very important to underscore this. One of the most common experiences is craft making. So you get involved in really plaiting or doing different bits of indigenous craft. You can also participate in cotton spinning. I think when you get involved, you get a great sense of how much work it actually takes to do some pieces that you see. For example, what does it take to weave a hammock, a traditional hammock? How much time it takes and the level of expertise. And I think that's one of the greatest strengths coming out of community-based tourism. You get an understanding of how much effort and work goes into such an item. This is a photo from one of the communities that we've been working with, Toka. So traditionally, Toka is known for their production of pottery. And so simply what we have done is shine a light on it to take something that they do traditionally and make it into an experiential activity that visitors can go. They actually go to the site to extract the clay and they do all the bits and pieces. An elder from the village actually accompanies you because you have to offer like a prayer before you extract it to let Mother Earth know that you're not there to disturb and to destroy, that you're merely using some of it. And so this is one of the newest experiences that we've been able to put together where you visit Toka and you're able to craft your own pottery piece that you can now take home. Cassava is really linked to the identity of Indigenous people. You may know it as yucca, but we have a version that we call bitter cassava because it contains the cyanide, which is poison. But through traditional practices, we're able to extract those so that it's not harmful to you. In this photo, this is basically cassava bread on a pan that's being baked. And the experience out of this is the cassava making process. So you basically go through all of the stages, led through it by a community member until you reach to actually flip your own cassava bread. And of course, you get to sample something that you've made. And regardless of whether it's totally wrong or not, a lot of people enjoy this because you have the experience of making something that you probably would not have thought that you could have done. And in the Rupununi, farine processing. So you use the same cassava and you parch it to create what we call Rupununi gold, or a type of rice. You may equate it to couscous, but a Rupununian will tell you no meal is ever complete without some farine in it. On the left, we have tukuma larvae, so it's kind of like a delicacy, and it is extracted or set through the ite palm. And the ite is a very versatile palm in our country. It can be used for housing, fruit. You get a fruit from it, you can make a drink, and of course, you can get the ite larvae. And as the list continues, there are a number of other culinary treats that are available. But if you think all of those are not to your liking, one of the things that we do offer from the authority is culinary training to help communities to also have diversification. In terms of the meals that are prepared. So it's very possible to have a traditional Guyanese meal with elements like curry, pepper pot that we are known for, fresh fruits and vegetables as well. This is the Aishalton petroglyph, said to be, sorry, just give me one moment. Yeah, said to be in excess of 6,000 years old. What our ancestors meant by the symbols, we're not sure, but they stand as a legacy that people walk before us, proud of their heritage. This is the Alaka snail, which is found in some communities in Region 1. And it is usually, the inside is usually extracted and cooked, and it was used as a source of protein back in the day. It's not done so much now. It's now seen as a more or less a delicacy. But imagine this and compare it with the Warramuri shell mound. So this is found in a community, and because of the angle of the photo, you don't quite see the hill, but it makes you wonder how many of these shells would have had to be eaten over X amount of years to actually come up with a mound, a little hill. But these are stories that you can explore more as you visit communities. Of course, you can learn a new skill, the art of archery, music, dance, plaiting, weaving. There are so many that are diversified among our Indigenous peoples. She makes it look very easy, but this is the tricky art of learning how to balance in a canoe, making sure that you don't end up in the water. But this is one of the skills that you can challenge yourself to. Traditional fishing, while it's easier to get the rod, we do have local fishermen that can teach you different arts of fishing. But you'll have to book that trip to Guyana to explore this one a little bit more. And if we really look at the value of everything, we look at the experiences that can be developed. I think what is very important to us in the development of these experiences largely is the passing of traditions, understanding that we have elders, we have middle-aged people, but how do we pass our knowledge down to the young ones who are now going to come up? In the North Rupununi, there are some examples of wildlife clubs that were set up, and these were really set up to give young people more environmental awareness. What ended up happening over time is that these very persons that were involved in these clubs then became tour guides. Some of them even went on to be tushaus or village leaders in their respective communities. And that shows the line of how knowledge can pass. And so for us, when we think of tourism experiences, it's not only showing you the cotton spinning and the craft pieces, but understanding that tourism has a very big part to play in the furtherance of traditions, in the process of bringing back some traditions that we might have lost. In the case of language, there are a number of language programs that are being implemented throughout the country to bring back Indigenous language as well, because that is being lost due to the influx of people movement and, of course, English being adopted. But I want to circle back on the value of conservation, because I feel that this is where our tourism product in terms of community-based tourism really hinges. The connection between conservation and tourism and the role that Indigenous peoples have to play. In the top left-hand corner is an example from Rewa, where they do sports fishing, catch and release for the arapaima. A number of years ago, this fish was actually threatened, endangered. But because they recognize the value of keeping the fish, the value of, if we protect this species, then more guests can actually come and see this species over and over again over time. And it wouldn't just be a one-time sale. Similarly, on the right, we have a group of rangers from Karasabai who are working to map and try to understand the behavior of the sun parakeet, which is also an endangered bird, but which is only sighted in that particular community. So those rangers are actively working to see how they can protect the bird from any kind of environmental threats. And then we come lower down on the right, the red siskin, another threatened bird. But this work has been led by the South Rupununi Conservation Society over the years. And they actually were one of the first institutions to really draw that nexus between tourism and conservation, where tourism dollars were actually funding the conservation work that was being done to understand the bird movement. And now there's a healthy population, which can be seen at a number of locations in the Rupununi, but also to say that they haven't just looked at the bird, they've now branched out into cultural traditional knowledge exchanges, really trying to get school-age children to understand the value of their environment as well. And to the left, we have an example from Wabani, and that is coming out of Cayman House. And I really like this particular project because I feel like it's very hands-on. It brings together craftspeople. They were actually able to get an agreement with IKEA to provide clay doorknobs as well as the panels for the US market. But also now they have the young persons involved in doing different bits of craft so that they too can be involved in the process. And I think when we bring all of this together, it really shows that you have to be very deliberate about what you want to do in terms of protecting your community, protecting your environment, and making sure that you put the right systems in place, making sure that at the end of it, people's rights, people's homes, and everything is protected. And of course, it'd be remiss of me if I didn't mention that last year, Guyana caught silver place at the WTM Latin America Responsible Tourism Awards under the category Best Initiatives for Indigenous Tourism. That for us was a huge moment because it recognized all the efforts that go on behind the scenes in creating tourism enterprises. It's one thing to develop it, but it's also another thing to make sure that those initiatives that have been started are actually sustainable and can actually lead to transformation in communities. And our support from the GTA. We can provide more information to you, connect you, whether it be farm trips, whatever bits of information that you require on Guyana, we can provide that by simply reaching out to your authority. And through this forum, if we have more questions to emerging destinations, we will also get those to us. And of course, be sure to check out our partner locations. Check guyanatourism.com for information, as well as our sister tourism enterprises such as TAG, Visit Rupununi for further details. And this is my favorite photo. I like this one because in it, I see simplicity. I see community-based tourism, the authentic experience, not one that is so carefully curated that you lose the sense of authenticity and why people are important. In this photo, you will see Auntie, she's there, she's washing the cassava tuber there. And then you have her guests, you're enjoying a plate of food. And then you can just see how at ease they are. And that for us is what represents community-based tourism in Guyana. It is a place where you come in as a stranger, sometimes unsure if this is the thing that you want to do, unsure if you're going to be able to paddle that canoe or weave that basket. But you come as a stranger and you are welcomed into our home, into our space, and you've given all the knowledge that we can possibly transmit to you, but also you're involved in every part of it. And so when I think of community-based tourism, I really like this approach. It's about people because people are what makes systems work. And all of this would not be possible without the partnership between the government, the private sector, and of course the communities who are really driving the process. We as the authority basically are there to just really support the development. And so on that note, I think the question is, are you ready for your Guyana experience? Thank you, and I now hand it over to Jenna for any questions that you may have.
Thank you so much, Candace. That was a very inspiring presentation. I mean, it's so nice to hear about all the initiatives that you have going on and how much involvement the Indigenous people have within the tourism sector in Guyana. So thank you so much for sharing a bit of that with everyone. Now, we do have a couple minutes to do questions. So if anybody does have something they'd like to ask Candace, please feel free to type that through now using the GoToWebinar control panel. I know we've had quite a few comments come in just about thanking you for such a thorough update and for all of the work that the GTA is doing. So thank you and all of the GTA for that. And Now, this is a question that I know is going to be a little bit difficult to answer, but I know you talked about lots of different experiences and tours in Guyana. So is there a way for people to book them, or how would you recommend them getting in touch with one of the local tour operators, or perhaps a DMC? If you could just speak to that a little bit to clarify, that would be amazing.
Okay. So that communication connectivity is actually one of the things that we're currently working on. One of the examples that I could give you is the Visit Rupununi website that was recently launched as in December and is now a communication portal connecting you not only directly to service providers, but if the service provider does not have reliable internet, then you're directed to Visit Rupununi as the regional destination management organization, and then they will filter the necessary communication through that portal. One of the things that we're really working on with communities is to develop that particular part, because that is often a challenge, how to get in contact with locations. But there are a number of operators who we've partnered with also to offer experiences to a number of communities. So if you go through Wilderness Explorers or even the other operators such as Touring Guyana, Wanderlust Adventures Guyana, just to name a few, then you would see some of these experiences actually featuring on their database as well. And of course, you can also reach out to us at the Guyana Tourism Authority. I think there are a number of locations also on our website that you may be able to connect to directly. And also check our Facebook page, which is actually a lot more active because we have the updates for licensed locations, those contacts that you can find there as well.
And just on that note as well, people can reach out to us at Emerging Destinations to connect you with the GTA. And I'll include some of those links on the webinar follow-up. So if anybody does want to kind of do a deep dive and check out what they do have available, I will make sure to coordinate with Candace to get all of the most accurate links for that.
Sure.
And then just one more question, and then I think we'll wrap up there for today. In terms of connectivity, when you are going into the interior of Guyana, is it a place where you can still access service if people do have a local SIM, or access to Wi-Fi? If you could just answer. I know that it's going to change a little bit per lodge or per place or region, but if you could just answer that to the best of your ability.
Okay, yeah. What we found in recent times is that it's getting a bit easier. There are, for example, a lot more communities now have access to the government-free Wi-Fi. If that doesn't work, we have a new Starlink that is being used in many communities as well. Some communities are now opening up to different types of telecommunications connections. And so it's gotten a little easier. I'm not saying everywhere you can be connected, but if you go through the lodges, you will find Wi-Fi there. But also to say that at some point there will be some kind of connectivity. Even if it just be that in the beginning you check in and then you can do periodic checks as well. And I think it really depends on where you're staying and the type of experience that you're having. So for example, if you're hiking to Uchi, which is like 4 days out from the village, of course, you will have very limited connectivity there. So you can drop a message before you go, but also when you get back in. And those communication challenges are also things through the development process that we're trying to work on as well.
Okay, wonderful. I think just for time's sake, we will wrap it up there. But thank you so much, everybody, for taking time out of your busy day to come and join Candace and I and hear a bit more about the unique Indigenous experiences that Guyana has to offer. If there's any questions that we didn't answer, please feel free to reach out to me, Jenna at emergingdestinations.com, and I'll make sure to coordinate with Candace to get you those answers. But thank you as well, Candace, for your passionate and very thorough webinar today. We really appreciate your time as well.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for the kind invitation as well.
Thank you, everyone. Have a fantastic Tuesday. Until next time. Bye.
Have a great one.